Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be something that I haven't done on this channel for quite a while now. It is a book review and it is for Illborn by Daniel T. Jackson. I have talked about Illborn for quite a while now, I think for 2 or 3 months. And unfortunately, I haven't gotten around to it until this month. And I'm really glad that I did because this was awesome. This was amazing. And this is, in my opinion, an absolutely compelling character-driven epic fantasy debut. Before I begin my review, I would like to say that, in my opinion, Illborn deserves a much better cover art. Now, the cover art itself is alright. It's not bad. I have seen plenty of worse cover arts than this. But you know what? This cover art just doesn't do justice to the quality of the captivating story that Daniel T. Jackson has crafted. If possible, I would really love to see a better cover art for Illborn. Honestly speaking, I don't think I would have given Illborn a try without hearing about all the positive things that I kept on hearing about on Bookstagram and Twitter. And I'm really glad I gave it a try because this is, as I said, it was amazing. I'm truly grateful that I gave Illborn a try despite my feelings on the cover art because this is such an amazing and underrated fantasy debut. Ridiculously underrated because at the time of posting this review, Illborn currently has about 150 ratings on Goodreads. That's unacceptable. Illborn deserves a much bigger audience, and if I had read Illborn, let's say last year, in 2021, it would have won my favorite debut of the year. Yes, it would have overtaken The Hand of the Sun King by J.T. Greathouse, which you guys probably know already that I absolutely love, but in my opinion, Illborn is even better than The Hand of the Sun King. It is just that good. Illborn is another example of why I love searching for underrated fantasy books. Finding hidden gems like this brings me joy. And just to give a bit of a rundown on the premise, more than 800 years ago, the Lord Iduel emerged from the deserts of the Holy Land. Iduel used his divine powers to forcibly unite the peoples of Angal before his ascension to heaven. Now, in the year 667 AA, after ascension, where the main story takes place in a medieval world threatened by war and religious persecution, 4 young men and women of the same age, 18 years old, began to develop supernatural abilities. This forbidden and secret power will shatter the lives that they have known. Each of them has to confront the mystery of the ethereal gate which haunts their dreams and find out how it's connected to their burgeoning abilities. These 4 characters will experience conflict, love, lust, and betrayal, and unbeknownst to them, they must also try to stay ahead of the sinister forces pursuing them because they are being hunted. As you can probably guess from the premise, Illborn is a very character-driven fantasy with a high focus on religions, faith, love, friendship, leadership and responsibilities, and also survival. Character-driven fantasy novels have always been my favorite type of book to read, and I think Daniel T. Jackson has crafted something truly special here. If you need just a small proof of Jackson's storytelling skill, I highly suggest for you to check out the Prologue of Illborn. I have talked about the Prologue of Illborn quite a lot here because, in my opinion, this is one of the best prologue that I've ever read in fantasy. Seriously, it kind of defeats the purpose of actually hearing my reviews because the prologue is just that good and it is quite short. I highly suggest for you to check it out. And after reading it, I think immediately you will know whether you want to continue with the book or not. And if you do decide to continue, the brilliant immersion and tension that you can find in the prologue remain consistent throughout the entire novel. And you know what? In my opinion, it gets better and better with every page. And it's all thanks to Jackson's absolute control over his characters and characterizations. I genuinely can't decide which one I love to read more between the 4 main characters, Alana, Corinne, Liana, and also Arian. Each main character story has themes that revolves around 3 words. Lust, power, and domination are Alana's. From my assessment, I think it's very safe to say that Alana will be the most divisive character for readers of Illborn. Growing up as a daughter of a courtesan, Alana has lived a hard life, and destiny won't give her a break at all. Things only get worse for her after she acquired her power, but I think her determination to live is something that's truly astonishing and astounding. Alana is a ruthless character. She prioritizes her survival over everything else. Her POV chapters is the definition of survival at all costs. She lies, she manipulates, there is a lot of treachery, and she's also self-righteous. All of these traits made Alana morally grey and also quite an unlikable character. But there is something so impressive about her chapters. Despite my feelings towards Alana, because sometimes she can be a very infuriating character, even though I do understand her intention, I do also understand why she did the things that she did, But yeah, sometimes she infuriated me, but you know what? I never felt bored reading her chapters. I always felt compelled. It kind of felt like I was reading a well-written origin story of a villain, of a self-righteous villain. That's Alana's story arc for me. And next we have Corin. Fear, control, and order determine Corin's life. Unlike Alana, it was easy for me to care for Corin. He and Akbeth, which is Corin's lover, are kind-hearted characters living in, if I'm not mistaken, a Viking-inspired society where might, pillaging, and bravery are at the center of their lifestyle. But Corin is not a warrior, while Akbeth is physically disabled, and conflicts arise from this. In a similar fashion but also different to Alana, Corin and Akbeth's story is about survival. Out of all the main characters in Illborn, Corin is more separated from the other three main characters. But this doesn't mean that Corin's story was ever lacking in impact and emotions. It was super engaging to read Corin and Akbeth's story of survival, and hey, there's even an animal companion in the story. I will leave it at that for you to find out for yourself, but there were many intense and satisfying moments and scenes in Corin's story that I loved reading. And before we get to the last character, I need to talk about Liana. Devotion, sacrifice, and salvation got her path, and I think Liana is the most surprising character for me in Illborn. As I mentioned earlier, fate is a dominant theme in the narrative. Many deadly conflicts in Illborn occurred because of religions and also misguided beliefs. Liana's story started relatively peace and simple, and although it was still very intense, on first impression, her story felt like it won't go anywhere too far. And I couldn't be more wrong about this because Liana's story is absolutely crucial to the entire book and definitely the entire series, I'm sure of it. Seeing the destruction caused by the corruption of fate was infuriating, but I think this is done in a very good way because it's so relatable and believable. It's something that could happen in real life. And Liana's story, even though it has a very simple beginning, it has always been tension-packed, and it keeps getting more intense and intense and intense as the book goes by. The topic of brutality and discord invoked by the blind fanaticism isn't something that's really new, and it's in Liana's POV chapters where Jackson managed to showcase the finest kind of unputdownable story on this topic. I cannot get enough of it, and the last chapters of her story, well, all the characters really, were totally stunning. Lastly, the fourth and final main character of Illborn, Arian. As I said, I found all four main characters' narration equally compelling. However, if I have to choose only one favorite POV character in Illborn to read, it will probably be Arian. Why? Arian's Sepian story reminded me of Violin Al Sorna from Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. Not in the way it's told, but due to the familiar elements and tropes embedded in Arian's POV chapters. Arian's story starts with his dominant father forcing him to become a priest because he's the third son in the family. And somehow, this was so captivating already. I love reading his brotherhood with Garion and Delrin, but that's not all. Arian's POV featured the battle school trope. Yes, one of my favorite tropes in fantasy is in Arian's POV chapters, and I immensely enjoyed reading Arian's continuous friendship with Sandar Pavil and also his rivalry with Berun. Jackson executed the battle scoop trope wonderfully to its maximum effect. Filled with a storyline that centers around strength, victory, and glory, Arian's storyline displayed carnage, battle frenzy, glorious power, bloody slaughter, and the grim nature of humanity and war. And if you're worried that Arian is a Gary Stu, rest assured that he's not perfect. He'd made questionable decisions, and I loved every moment of reading his POV chapters. I have talked about a lot of great things that made Illborn so good, but I honestly feel like I've just scratched the surface of the greatness of this book. There are so many things to love in Illborn, and seriously, so many chapters. Almost every chapter keeps on ending on a cliffhanger, and this made me eagerly look forward to their next chapter, and this went on for an entire novel. The world building felt intricate, and I have lost a lot of sleeping hours due to reading Illborn. Every moment I was free, I used it to still read a chapter or two. The story in Illborn ranges from the year 667 AA to 669 AA. That's 2 years, and within 2 years of storyline, the development that the characters endured was totally astonishing. None of the characters stayed the same from their first chapter. Everyone has developed and everyone has changed because of the bloody circumstances that they encountered. If Jackson can actually keep up this excellence for the rest of the series, or maybe improve upon them, no idea how, well, I think he might succeed. Illborn is one of the most magnificent epic fantasy debut that I've ever read. Brimming with pulse-pounding stakes, vivid actions, and believable moral dilemma, character-driven epic fantasy reader will instantaneously love Illborn. From the beginning of the novel to the end, Illborn provides an incredibly absorbing story about well-realized characters doing their best to survive in a brutal world ravaged by war, injustice, and religious oppression. Although the year 2022 has just begun, I have no doubt that Illborn will stay in one of my top 10 books of the year by the end of this year. Read this awesome debut as soon as possible, and if I'm not mistaken, book 2, the sequel to this one, will also come out within this year. I will be reading that one immediately. So yeah, that's my review for Illborn, and now we have a guest appearance from Chocoboy. It's been a while since Chocoboy made an appearance on my booktube channel, and well, do let me know whether you have Illborn on your radar or not, because in my opinion, this is absolutely awesome. It's incredible. And this is, without a doubt, one of the best self-published fantasy book that I've ever read. And do let me know whether this book sounds interesting to you or not, and whether you plan to read this as soon as possible. Yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Hey, say bye. Oh no! Well, bye-bye.